Hello, and welcome to another episode of Heal Yourself with me, Sarah Dawkins. We're the podcast that shares real people sharing their own journeys of overcoming health and illness problems. And today's guest is Erica Hoke, who is an infertility strategist, author, and publisher, and whose life mission revolves around empowering women grappling with infertility. At 35, Erica made a powerful decision to actively participate in her own healthcare journey, and she became pregnant 4 times without the help of reproductive medicine by addressing the root causes and embracing holistic healing. So I'd like to welcome you to Erica Hoke. Welcome, Erica.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me on to talk to your audience today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You have been through so much and have 4 lovely children now.
I have four. I used to say four wild little boys, but they're young men now. They're becoming young men now. So lots of testosterone in my house, but um, I don't have it nearly as hard as your listeners who are going through infertility. I will say that because I am on the other side of it, and I got my dream life, and so I really want to use our time today to make sure that anybody listening knows that they can change the outcome of their fertility journey.
Thank you. And would you like to share how yours started and what you did yourself to overcome that infertility and have those 4 wonderful boys?
Sure. Yeah. So I knew that my fertility journey was potentially going to be problematic. At 35, I had a handful of diagnoses. Some would come later, but all in all, I had 7 different reproductive diagnoses. I think this is important for your listeners because sometimes I feel like women say to themselves, well, I have X, Y, or Z, right? I'm never going to get pregnant. The doctors tell me that I can't. Even if I had one of those, it would have been really limiting, right? My hope, my odds would have been really limiting. But at 35, I had 7 diagnoses, and one of them was diminished ovarian reserve. So I was not a candidate for IVF. I have to emphasize that because it was my backup plan, right? I was thought, well, if all these things that I'm trying on my own, if we get to that point and I'm doing all these things, then I'll do, reproductive medicine, everything will be fine, right? That's everybody's plan B. But at 35, I was told that I would need donor eggs. I couldn't do IVF. And that was what kicked off my journey into healing myself, finding out what affects fertility, and getting the outcome that I wanted.
Fabulous. And what other diagnoses did you have?
Right. So I had excise surgery for stage 4 endometriosis. I had multiple uterine fibroid surgeries. I'd like to circle back to that because this is kind of my second point, and it's super important. So let's make sure that we talk about that. But I had several fibroid removal surgeries. I had PCOS. I had ovarian cysts. I had later found out that I had MTHFR. I had thyroid disease. Did I get all 7? I had a lot. I don't know if that's all 7, but I think that gives you the picture, right? I was really unwell, and specifically, for your listeners, talking about like going back to those fibroid surgeries, I had 2 surgeries, and they told me that they couldn't find anything. But my life was being completely controlled by my cycle. It was debilitating. I was having, tons of bleeding. I could barely work. I was vomiting the first day of my cycle. It was extremely painful. So anybody that has been on that side of that kind of disease, I want you to know, like, that's where I was. It was as bad as it could get, right? Maybe some people would have thought of having a hysterectomy. But I knew that there wasn't not something there. That's terrible grammar, but I knew that there had to be something in there causing all this upheaval in my body. And so I kept pushing the doctors. Now, mind you, I've had 2 surgeries where they found nothing. Some people might have stopped there. This is where I want your listeners to understand. You have to listen to your body. You have to be proactive in your healthcare, in your decisions, in finding alternatives and getting second opinions, right? If anybody takes anything away today, that's the crux of my story. So my doctor finally said to me, he's like, well, if you go to your reproductive endocrinologist, they can do this surgery where they fill your uterus with saline. And then sometimes, some things come to surface. Well, I woke up from that surgery to find out that when they did that all the fibroids that had been pushed into my uterine wall were like able to float basically in the saline. And they took so many fibroids out, it looked like a handful of aquarium gravel.
Wow.
Like a ton. And that was terrifying in its own right, because of the scarring and, the real estate in your uterus. And did I now have this surgery and scar my uterus to the point, because they've removed all these fibroids, that I'm not going to be able to get pregnant with that. But I had to prioritize my overall health, which, my overall health was the goal, and pregnancy was going to be the outcome, right? That's what I tell my clients. Your overall health has to be the goal. Pregnancy will follow, but we have to listen to our bodies. So that's just one of the ways that, I addressed some of the things that were going on, with my diagnosis and with my infertility.
Yeah, and how shocking, how reassuring in one way, because you knew your body was in trouble and you wanted to help it, but how shocking to know what came away from you. But you're
absolutely.
and you're absolutely right. We have to tap back in and listen to our bodies, and understand, because we are the expert on our bodies. Doctors are there to help us, but we know ourselves.
Right.
Thank goodness that you kept pushing forwards and saying, no, there's something there. There's something there.
Right. And so many times, we give our power away to the medical community. And, I again often say, just because a doctor tells you that they can't help you, it doesn't mean that you can't get pregnant. So just because a doctor tells you that they don't know what to do for you, it doesn't mean that there's nothing that can be done. You have to make sure that you're satisfied with that answer, and get a second opinion, or find somebody wiser that is able to, assist you.
Yeah. And like you say, just keep pushing forwards. If you know that there's something not quite right going on in your body, it's a case of finding who can help you to resolve whatever you know that you don't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So that wasn't the magic bullet for me. Unfortunately, that surgery wasn't. I still, had diminished ovarian reserve. I still couldn't do IVF. I still wasn't getting pregnant. So I started diving into the diet and lifestyle changes that were going to have the biggest impact on my fertility. I started participating in traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and herbs, and in a pretty intense protocol where I was going multiple times a week. And within about 18 months of making those changes, after that, terrible diagnosis that I would need donor eggs, I was able to conceive my oldest son.
Oh, how wonderful. You must have been elated.
Oh, it was beyond my wildest dreams. It was fantastic. And I had a great pregnancy, and we knew that we wanted siblings, and so I did my blood work, and again, it wasn't great, not a shock, but within, let's see, I stopped. So he was 15 months old and I stopped breastfeeding. And then within, I would say 4 months of that, I got pregnant with twins spontaneously, and I was 39. which is important to your listeners. People are terrified of that number, 35 plus, and it's not as grim as it's often portrayed, I think, to women. So again, diminished ovarian reserve, all the things. Here I am, second pregnancy, twins. So I had my twins, and then the same spacing after that. So it would have been, 17 months after the birth of my twins, I got pregnant and I lost a set of twins. And one of the diagnoses that I failed to mention, sorry, it's a little early here this morning. I'm like, how could I forget factor V Leiden? So I actually have a blood clotting disorder that is super common in the population and can cause miscarriage and secondary infertility, miscarriage at any trimester, but secondary infertility as well. It's very confusing to people. But the reason that I'm bringing this up now is because when I got pregnant, after my twins were born, I was pregnant with a second set of twins. So I won't go into a full dissertation about factor V Leiden. You can check out my YouTube channel. I talk about it a lot on there. But factor V Leiden, the clotting disorder is problematic in pregnancy because of estrogen. And because I was pregnant with twins again, my estrogen went way up really fast, right? And so it was kind of like a perfect storm, because I know you have international listeners, but here it was a holiday. And the doctor's office, like the day I got my pregnancy test, the doctor's office was closed early. And then the following Monday, they were closed. So in that amount of time of not being able to get the proper medication to treat this factor V Leiden, this blood clotting disorder, the blood thinners, I lost the pregnancy. So I lost that set of twins. And I know it's, in my heart of hearts, unfortunately, I know that that's why, is that delay in getting the medication. But I healed from that miscarriage. And then at the age of 42, I got pregnant with my last son. I call him my last good egg. And, at 43, delivered my last baby. And that was 7 years after being told that I would need donor eggs.
That is absolutely amazing, isn't it? And to heal all those health problems. And as you say, when we heal, we just heal. So as our body is healing and growing and evolving, it becomes more receptive to its normal cycles.
Right.
And so being able to get pregnant all those times, 4 times, and have 4 beautiful children is absolutely amazing for anybody. It's inspirational for anybody who has been told that they can't have babies and have resigned themselves to that fact. And here you are sharing your story of overcoming, showing that we can do what doctors say that we can't.
Right. Absolutely. And part of that healing, I don't want to leave this part out, because talking about being told that you can't have babies and being, in that mind space, a lot of my healing was also mental. I came from a background of abuse, and I truly believe that those mental health impacts, those trauma, affect your fertility, but also fertility in itself is trauma. I think that more and more women are coming to realize that. The medical community is coming to realize that, where you have multiple failed procedures, you have multiple miscarriages. So processing that trauma of infertility as you go through it is super important to your fertility journey. And it's something that I focus on with my clients a lot, is not stuffing that 800-pound gorilla in the cage every month, right? That disappointment, the bitterness, the sorrow, the grief, just all the anguish, right? We can't just act like it does not impact our body.
No, we have to go through that full grieving process.
Right.
for what we're being told we can't do or we can't have. And as you say, that grieving process is a whole range of emotions, from denial to anger to despair to finally coming out to the other end, when the grieving with the loss of a loved one is acceptance. But of course, with infertility, you don't have to have that acceptance, because that is just one doctor, one person's
Right.
opinion, and they don't know your body and your mindset. And mindset's got to be huge in your
It
own
is.
healing. Just knowing that you were able to heal your body and you were going to have those children.
Right. Absolutely. And it's not just my opinion. There's a lot of mental health providers that are focusing on fertility um, counseling as people are going through it. Some of my authors and my books. I'll tell you just briefly one of the woman's stories. She's in South Africa. She couldn't get pregnant. It was unexplained infertility. Like some of your listeners, every test run. And a very astute reproductive endocrinologist suggested that she had some emotional trauma that she was unaware of. And so she went through some hypnosis therapy, and that doctor was able to determine that she had been sexually abused as a toddler by a babysitter. And she was able to confirm the details that were revealed during the session with her parents. And so it was all validated. But after she was able to heal that trauma and release that memory, she was able to get pregnant.
Yeah, and our emotional trauma, they've got to be healed, haven't they?
Yeah,
And like that lady didn't even know that she was
right,
holding on to that trauma. A lot of us do know that we've gone through traumatic experiences.
right.
And I was talking to somebody recently. It's not so much about the trauma itself, although the trauma is traumatic. It's more about how we perceive what's happened to us and how we
Mm.
hold the perception of what's happened to us. Because oftentimes we could be made to feel the problem. We were the problem, and that's why whatever happened to us happened to us. And that's not the case. And it's about identifying that, we were the victims within that.
Hmm.
And healing that trauma means that we can step out of that victim mindset and mentality. Because I've been in that. I was a victim
Yeah,
for a couple of years in a depression um, scenario, and it's about understanding we have to be in that victim mentality for a short time to process what
hmm,
happened and sit and feel that, because we were violated, however, whatever happened to us. But then process that and step out of victim and say, well, okay, that's happened. I can't change what's happened, but I can change the way I view it. And
right.
that's what's the important part in the healing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I will say too, for the benefit of your listeners, is that I would be probably a really sick person if I had not gone through my infertility journey, healed my body, been able to get pregnant, because all the things that were going on, um, I would have told you that I had a healthy lifestyle, that I had a good diet, but I had a lot of inflammation in my body. And um, without going through the process of healing my body so that I could get pregnant, I think I would have a lot of different diagnoses and be, like I said, a pretty sick person at this point in my life.
Yeah, but I mean, even stress
Mhm.
causes inflammation. So you can have a
Right.
really healthy lifestyle and eat well and exercise and sleep well and do the
Yeah.
mental work and the emotional work. But if you're feeling stressed out all the time, that inflammation is still going to be ongoing in the body, and it
Right.
needs addressing, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think it's, uh, the bane of, I'm looking for the right word. No woman going through infertility wants to hear just relax, right?
Yeah.
And you have to have tools. You have to have tools to control your stress levels. You can't just ignore your stress, because it's taking a toll on your body and for sure on your fertility. So, like I said, that's one of the things that I address with my clients, my programs is, having those pocket tools that when you are at work and you go to the ladies' room and you get your cycle, instead of, hoping another day for a positive pregnancy test, you can't just stuff that in, right? You have to have some pocket tools. So I provide some somatic techniques to help women go through, my team, I should say, because I'm not a practitioner, but my team provides them with some things to put in place so that they can process that a little bit, right, in the moment, and not just pull themselves together by the bootstraps and, go back to their desk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's the reality of it. That's the
Yes.
reality of it. We're living this infertility journey, every day of our lives, while we're at work, while we're, at social functions, and people are inappropriately asking us about our
Yes.
about our reproductive life and all kinds of things like that. So
Yeah. And like you said, so many different things can affect it as well, because you mentioned your thyroid and you mentioned PCOS, both of which we're told, the medical model can't cure these, but yet we know that they are healable by addressing the root cause. And the thyroid is partly to do with food and partly to do with detoxification, but it's also partly to do with being authentic and speaking what you need to say, isn't it?
Yeah. Thank you so much for mentioning that, because I often forget to talk about this part of my healing journey, in interviews. But I had thyroid nodules. They were afraid that I had thyroid cancer, but the doctors were watching these nodules for many, many years. And then one day I went and they said, well, we can't find them. They're gone.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
And that was part of your own healing journey.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, thyroid levels, thyroid plays a huge part in the fertility journey. And I just want to mention to your listeners, thyroid has to be tailored to you. It was one of the key turning points, I believe, in my infertility journey, because I was told, well, you're in range, right? Air quotes, you're in range. Well, the range for thyroid levels is the size of a football field, right? So one of the things that I teach my clients to do, and this will be your takeaway for any of your listeners who have been told this, I would encourage you to track your own thyroid levels. So for instance, if you're 30 years old and you have had your thyroid levels taken as part of your, normal health screenings once a year since you were 25, go back and look at your levels at 25 and at 27 and at 29 and whenever. Track that yourself, because your normal might be on the other side of the football field, right? And they're telling you, well, you're still in range. Well, that's not normal for you, because it's declining or it's accelerating or what have you. It's moving, is my point. It's moving, right? And so that's not normal for you. So I had to push for them to treat me for my normal, because I was still symptomatic. And that's the other thing. You can be normal and still be symptomatic. And that's the problem, is that it's not your dialed in thyroid level. So it's super important for you to advocate for yourself if you have some concerns about your thyroid and that you're still symptomatic. So
yeah, and I healed an underactive thyroid as part of my own journey, but the levels for thyroids, as you say, they're huge, wide ranging. And they have been changed a few times as well, those, the parameters. So if the parameters can change, where is that coming from? But the other thing is, you can be within normal levels, as the doctor says, and still have symptoms. So even healing your thyroid can be done without pharmaceuticals, and your whole health journey can be done naturally.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree.
Thank you. So, Erica, I know you've shared lots of different things about your own healing journey. Could you share one thing that somebody today going through infertility could do for themselves in one way or another to help themselves on their own healing journey?
I think the main thing is just to take a first step. So many times we're paralyzed in our decisions and we feel powerless because our power's been taken away from us, right? We've been told that our body is broken, that we need outside resources. And I would say that the biggest thing is to shift your mindset and take that first step, whatever that looks like for you. And I always tell my clients, like, take the first easiest step, right? Don't make it hard on yourself. If you have to have, a pot of coffee a day, well, okay, don't start there, start someplace where it's easier, add some additional water in, substitute that out. Whatever is the easiest thing for you to improve your overall health, because that's what we're going for. Overall health is the goal and pregnancy is the outcome. Take those steps and do it little by little, because neither you nor I made any of these changes overnight, right? You have to take one step at a time, and be kind to yourself that way, right? Because so many times too, I see people who they start that journey, they start that first step, right? We're recording this in the new year, and so we see it with people's New Year's resolutions,
Yes.
where they last 1 week and then then it's done. But you have to get to the point where you're not doing it to, again, I'm air quoting for your listeners, air quote, where you're not doing it to get pregnant. You're doing it for you. You have to do it for you and your body and your health. I had to have that surgery for my overall health, right? I would say anybody going through infertility has room for improvement to do that, because if you're struggling, there are areas in your life that are screaming at you for attention.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, because it really is baby steps, isn't it? If you look at the big picture, it can feel so overwhelming because there's so many different things that we could possibly do and changes we could possibly make. But yes, if you can identify something small and do that. And I believe in intention over resolution,
Perfection
like,
or resolution, right? Yeah.
yeah. So don't make a New Year's resolution, make an intention, but make a daily intention. Why not?
Right.
What can I do today? Well, how can I help myself? Because we're at the end of the day, we're doing what we're doing for our own benefit, for
Right.
nobody else's. So we're doing it out of choice. We are choosing, we are making that decision and choosing to put us first by changing parts of our diet and lifestyle over time. And then when we look back, we've come such a long way.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that might look like, maybe that first step for you is making that phone call for a second opinion because you don't quite fit well with your doctor, or maybe it's stepping outside of your comfort zone and looking into traditional Chinese medicine. Any of these things are going to be helpful to your infertility journey.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you for sharing all of that. And where can the listeners find you, Erica?
Well, they can find me on my website. It's just my first and last name. It's Erica with a C. And then, as you said, I like to say my last name is Hoke, but it's like Hope with a K. So Hoke. So Erica with a C, ERICA, Hoke, HOKE.com. But I also have a YouTube channel under that name as well, where I support women on their journey. I have a free Facebook support group. I'm on Instagram, and I have a infertility success series of books on Amazon and wherever books are sold, really, where there's just a group of women who wanted to share their journey of hope and healing to encourage others. And they're not just memoirs. They're not just us telling our story. We really took a rear view lens in telling our story, and we're speaking to the reader and saying, hey, there are tips throughout the chapter. So we stop and say, hey, in this tip, I wish I would have known this here. I wish I would have had this test here before I had that miscarriage, which happened to one of our authors. I wish that I had gotten a second opinion. I wish I had made this change. So it really is a very intimate connection with every chapter. And there's a variety of women's stories, some not unlike my own, others who did, in fact, have egg donors and IVF. So it's a broad spectrum of stories. So it's Infertility Success, Stories of Help and Hope for Your Journey. That's book one. And then we had so many authors. We had an amazing author that was in the middle of another pregnancy and she was moving. So we created a second edition, and it's Infertility Success, More Stories of Help and Hope for Your Journey. So we wanted to make sure her story and the other author stories got out there. And then in the process, Sarah, and I don't know if you even know this, but in the process of working with these authors, we all realized that a lot of us had some postpartum trauma from the infertility journey. And so we wanted to basically shine a light. The last two books in the series are about shining a light in those dark places where people really feel alone. You know, here we have gone through this incredible infertility journey, and we have the baby of our dreams, and society thinks that that's a magic wand to erase all the trauma that we've been through. And a lot of us experience a lot of postpartum depression and anxiety and things like that, because we thought the whole pregnancy that we were going to lose our baby. Then we thought we were going to die during childbirth and the baby was going to die. And now we have the baby, and, you know, it's just really hard transition sometimes into motherhood. And so that book is Infertility Success to Postpartum Mess, about the emotional fallout of not dealing with infertility trauma, and then getting your dreams come true, having your dreams come true, and having this child and having to kind of deal with that in the moment. And then the final book is Infertility Success, Stories of Faith and Miracles. And that's about like the faith journey of women as they were going through infertility, and kind of the wrestling with their faith, whether it increased or whether, you know, they questioned if they were being punished, which a lot of women just feel like this is some kind of punishment from God. And it's an uplifting story about how people went through that process and walked through their faith with that journey. So
wonderful. And thank you for sharing all of that. So I will put all that text in the information below this recording, so the listeners can reach out to you and find your books and have
thank you
hope.
so much. Yeah, absolutely. You know, we know that women going through infertility feel alone most of all. Some of them don't even tell their families, their best friends. It's just them and their spouse, right? And so this is a way that if you have someone in your life that you know is struggling, that you can put this book in their hand and not even say a word, right? And they'll have some support there. They won't feel so alone. You know, we're on social media, but a lot of women withdraw from social media because they can't deal with the pregnancy announcements. They can't deal with seeing the babies and the births and all that. And so again, it's super isolating. And so this is something that they can have in the privacy of their home, on their, you know, Kindle or in their hand, and not feel so alone.
Fabulous. Thank you for all you do, Erica. And I appreciate your time coming to speak to my listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah.